สิครับ
ขอบคุณมากครับ
ด้วยความยินดีครับได้มาเยี่ยมเลย
Welcome to Talking Politics. So with me today is Kantathi Suphamongkhon, who served as foreign minister during the Thaksin government between 2005 and 2006. So welcome, Kantathi, to our program.
Thank you very much, Kantathi.
Kantathi, every time there's a change of government, there is always interest in the foreign policy direction of the incoming administration. But in fact, Kun Pithalip Juranrat, the presumptive prime minister, has given us a glimpse of his foreign policy, which he said will revolve around the so-called 3 R's, right? Revive, rebalance, and recalibrate. We'll come to that later on. But I want to start by raising an issue on the topic that is being debated quite hotly in Thailand at the moment. It concerns allegations of U.S. intervention in Thailand's domestic affairs. Because there have been critics who question the policy of the coalition being formed by the Move Forward Party, right? And so much so that there was a group of people demonstrating in front of the American embassy recently, demanding an end to what they see as American intervention in Thailand's domestic affairs. So my question is, are we too paranoid? Or are there really people out there in America who are always looking for a loophole, an opportunity to intervene in Thailand?
Well, what a good question to open our conversation with. I think that it's important for Thai people in general to look at evidence. Everything has to be evidence-based, and the ability to do critical thinking. You know, nowadays when you read the news, especially with all the activities in the social media and all that, misleading information can come out very easily. So if you look at the accusation against the U.S. interference in the internal affairs of Thailand or not, we have to make some distinctions. I have seen no evidence that the executive branch of the U.S. government, which is actually the government maintaining foreign policy around the world, there's no evidence that the U.S. government wants to interfere or has interfered at all. Now, one may refer to the Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
So you have the Senate as well as the Congress, the House. They had been resolutions before the elections that urged Thailand to do certain things, to be fair, and some other elements that we all have heard about. We must understand that U.S. congressmen and senators have a tendency to do that. They have their issues around the world, actually. So we have to look at the specifics. And one thing that is important to emphasize is that the resolutions coming from the Senate or from the House in the U.S. Congress have no legal binding on the government. There's no binding for the government of the U.S. to act on. So it's not legally binding. It's just an expression of an opinion. And I understand that, for example, in the Senate, only 3 persons co-signed the draft resolution, which became a resolution. These resolutions did not become news in the U.S. at all, but they became news here. So there's no degree of influence in the U.S. At all. The general public in the U.S. would probably not even have heard about it. So in that sense, you know, countries can express desires for certain things to happen in another country. That's kind of normal, you know. But to interfere, one has to look at what type of interference. Is our country trying to manipulate voting? there's no evidence of that. There's no evidence that the U.S. would like to manipulate voting or anything on that line at all. And the U.S. government, the executive branch, U.S. Embassy, I think is well aware that that's a line that would not be crossed. There was even a discussion about the U.S. wanting to have a military base here.
Oh, that's right. That's one of
Yes.
the issues raised by these
Yes.
protesters.
Yes, there's no evidence of that at all. In fact, I have talked to so many people throughout the years in the U.S. government. There's been no desire to have a U.S. base in Thailand. And there's no desires at all to, I heard another accusation that the U.S. wanted to try to use Utapao again. There's no evidence of that also. You know, every once in a while we have joint military exercises. And Thailand does that with the U.S. In a bilateral or multilateral at the two levels. But also, you know, Singapore also does military exercise in Thailand. China also has done some joint exercise with Thailand. So I think it's something that we have to avoid, and that is don't come to a conclusion without strong evidence and look at the accusation and be critical.
Yeah. Now, even though the whatever comes out of the two resolutions in the House and in the Senate in the U.S. concerning Thailand, it doesn't have any legal binding effect, right? But it's the content of the draft resolutions that concern people, because the contents, the two drafts have very similar contents, they're exactly the same contents. It talks about demanding an end to the so-called least magis law, the Article 112, right? And demands release or the dropping of all charges against activists being detained for their political activities. And then even more disturbing to many of these people is that it also demands, it's seen as a threat against Thailand by saying that if there is a military or intervention by the monarchy in the aftermath of the election, this will have effect on the Thai-American relations. So this is what is seen as the interference in Thai domestic affairs. Is that fair enough for them to see things that way?
Well, again, this is not coming from the executive branch. So it's not coming from the U.S. government as we know it. It is coming from the representatives of the American public. And of course, these are views of certain senators and views of certain congressmen. So we have to put that into context. It is unlikely that it would be translated into U.S. policy and acted out by the U.S. administration.
But can these resolutions, if they are passed by the both houses, will they become a basis of future action against Thailand?
I think it's highly unlikely. They have so many different types of resolutions like this, which did not coincide with U.S. government policies at all. And they are just an expression, again, of certain people's views on things. And they're left there. So I assume that nothing will be acted on as far as the resolutions are concerned. But I understand that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as well as the Thai embassy, the Thai ambassador in Washington, have reached out to the congressman in question and the senators and explained the situation and put everything into the right understanding and context.
Now, if you were still the foreign minister, how would you have reacted to this?
I think I would definitely express my concern to the U.S. government, as well as ask our ambassador in Washington to express and try to explain the real situation to the congressmen or the senators in question. But the concern I would express directly to the U.S. government too, and I think the interaction like that, expression of concern, is something that we can do.
Okay, now let's come to what will be the foreign policy direction of the incoming administration. Things are still being sorted out among all these 8 would be coalition partners, right? But Kun Pitha, the presumptive prime minister, has already unveiled his ideas about his foreign policy, which is will revolve around the 3 R's I just mentioned: revive, rebalance, and recalibrate. What is your take on these 3 R's?
I think we have already practiced the 3 R's. In fact, when I was foreign minister, we covered all the 3 R's in practice. We need to not be under the umbrella of any major powers. We, in the olden days, we used to be part of CETO, and of course we were under one umbrella. But now we have to make sure that we have good relations with all countries that we have relations with. And of course, major countries, China, we should have our own good relations with China. The US understands that, and we have to have good relations with the US. China, I'm sure, understands that. So a balanced approach to protect our national interests, I think it's a continuation. So we are just seeing the continuation of the 3 R's maybe with the incoming administration.
Now, have we been too close to China as many people see? I mean, because according to one of the advisors of Kun Pitha, who works on the foreign policy direction, he said in the past, I mean, because of the coup d'etat we had many years back, Thailand was somehow pushed, I mean, into the arms of China, and now with the 3 R's direction, they want things to be moved back to this center. So that means that in the past, Thailand must have been seen as being too close to China. Is that how we are seen in Washington D.C. as well?
In some circles,
yeah.
Yes, in some circles, because after the coup d'etat, and we had some experience with that, right? The U.S., in contrast to China, the U.S. Brought up the position against coup d'etats, and had to do certain things, a degree of sanctions, making it more difficult for the Thai government under the leadership of the military to be as close to the U.S. So there was a tendency for Thailand to go a bit closer to China, because China has a policy of not mentioning anything that happens domestically anywhere else. So it did not criticize what happened in Thailand. So there was probably an increased degree of activities, but I would not say that Thailand was going to jump into the Chinese camp. It's not that far, but certain academics have been writing books, and not only Thai academics, but non-Thai, foreign academics, and with more or less trying to point fingers at Thailand being too close to China. But I don't think that's really been the case.
You are a member of the advisory board of Grand Corporation,
yes,
the non-partisan research and analysis think tank. How do people in Grand Corporation see Thailand in this context?
Well, they see Thailand very, very positively, especially since they got to know me.
All right.
And
you are ambassador of Thailand in a way, right?
Yes, and I participate in all issues of global significance with them. So they feel that a Thai person can be very, very knowledgeable about all the issues, and they ask for my opinions on all issues around the world. And so, and in addition to that, they think very positively about Thailand. And the same goes with the US government. So the relationship between Thailand and the US is so long-standing. And I think it will continue on that path. So there's no problem, but it's good to have dialogues. It's good to have exchanges of views to avoid any misunderstanding. And that's all part of diplomacy.
You know, there have been calls for Thailand to play a more active role in ASEAN. And many people said that in the past many years, Thailand have been under the radar, has not been active enough in dealing with issues confronting the region. Take the crisis in Myanmar, for example. Thailand has been practicing what is known as quiet diplomacy. But many critics say that this is not enough. Being quiet, can be translated into being accommodating with the regime, the military regime in Naypyidaw, right? So if Thailand want to be back on the radar screen again, what should be the first step that Thailand should take?
Well, I think Thailand should have a combination. Now, the first step is that we have to be walking tall and be confident enough to act on our principle and act on our stand. Quiet diplomacy has a role, but if it's too quiet and no result, that's a problem. I remember when I was in office, I had to negotiate quietly with Myanmar so that Myanmar would not chair ASEAN when it was scheduled to chair, because there were problems, human rights problems, and Myanmar, it's similar to today. Yeah. And so I was able to do quiet diplomacy with the generals in Myanmar, and they actually postponed their chairmanship because of our quiet diplomacy. So you have to look at, sometimes quiet diplomacy is helpful, but it has to be result-based. You have to look at the results. If it's just quiet diplomacy and no results, no change, then you have a problem. And you have to combine that with not so quiet diplomacy. So you can stand tall and have your well thought out principles at hand and act on it. So with Myanmar, I think we have a good role to play, constructive role. With ASEAN, we also can play a very constructive role there. So don't blend into the walls. You have to stand out sometimes, and Thailand has the ability to do that if we have the right person in place.
And as far as Myanmar is concerned, what do you think, what more can Thailand do?
Well, I think Thailand should, first of all, coordinate very closely with all ASEAN countries outside of Burma, of course, or outside of Myanmar. We should not act too much alone, but we should be able to get all on board, especially countries that may want a bit more results in Myanmar. We then, I would say that it's important to try to engage all stakeholders in Myanmar. So we should not only have dialogues with through the government, the military government, but we should try to approach and make all the stakeholders participate. And maybe the military government would try to reject this, but we have the force of ASEAN behind. We could do many things. Humanitarian assistance, there are arguments. If you channel everything through the official corridors, it may not get to the right people. So we have to be completely flexible, and with the goal of trying to actually try to solve the human situations, bring peace to Myanmar, and be realistic and be strong about it.
All right. Okay. Final questions. Given the challenges Thailand will be facing in the foreign policy areas for the incoming administration, so what kind of qualification should we look for in the new foreign minister?
Well, first of all,
besides all the qualities that you already have.
That's too kind. That's too kind. Thank you very much. First of all, you have to be knowledgeable about foreign affairs in a comprehensive way. We need that badly because in diplomacy, you don't just go and read notes, talking points, but you have to be able to interact impromptu with all your counterparts while waiting for a meeting, while having meals together, while traveling. You can make friends that way. So it's the talk outside of the conference hall which becomes very important. In the past, we have seen Thai leaders with no ability to do that. You know, everything has to be with the piece of paper and the talking points. So you need that spontaneous interaction.
Yeah.
You need that skill. But in order to do that, you have to be informed about not only issues close to home, but you have to be informed about all important global issues and maybe give advice because when I was foreign minister, the U.S. Secretary of State asked for my advice on U.S. policy towards North Korea, towards Iran, to Middle East. In fact, lately, even when I wasn't foreign minister, when President Trump at first had serious problems with North Korea before he embraced North Korea, when things were going in a dangerous path. I remember a senior U.S. representative came to Thailand telling the Thai government not to have any relationship with the North Koreans, but came to me to say that could I travel to North Korea to help the U.S. Because I had played a quiet role in facilitating the six-party talks before.
Okay.
So they actually asked me to do that. So things like this comes from interaction, and the person of the foreign minister, you know, the ability for the foreign minister to be articulate and to make friends. I think that is so crucial.
Okay.
So that is a comprehensive package.
All right. Okay. Let's hope that we can get someone with that kind of qualities to
Yes.
fill the post.
Yes, yes, and they are people that I have seen
All right.
with such quality. But the person has to be open-minded,
Yeah.
listen to officials in the foreign ministry, look at, you know, everyone has blind spots. So we need to not think that we know it all.
Okay.
We need to listen to all. And of course, I hope that the next foreign minister will listen to people at all levels in the foreign ministry.
Okay.
That's also very important. But there's no substitute, though, to knowledge and the ability to interact well. English is very important because English is the diplomatic language now. So the ability to do that, but language alone is not enough. It requires a comprehensive skill.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณครับ
You're most welcome.